Like this, just coming in.
Well, good morning, everyone. Chairman wasn't the last person to arrive today, so note that in the minutes. Thank you, Monica. Looks like this is the Planning, Resource and Development Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 17th. It looks like everyone in the committee is here. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes from September 3rd?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Morehouse, is there a second? Supervisor Kinnear, seconds. Any corrections or additions? Okay, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Minutes are approved. Public comments. Do we have public comments? No.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So we received one public comment by email. It came in on yesterday, September 16th at 12:50 PM from Mr. Terry Nichols. Public comments, PR&D. Hang on, let me get it up on the screen here. Sorry about that. Okay, public comments, PR&D Committee, 9/17/2025. As a member of the Town of Colfax Plan Commission for decades and originally working with Bob Colson as a county employee to lead the townships of this county in establishing the town's comprehensive plans, it's time to see if all our work through the years and following state statutes relating to comprehensive plans of government entities has validity. Recent events relating to the construction of a data center and the progress thus far put Dunn County in a leadership position. The towns know that Dunn County is updating its comprehensive plan, and we have been part of the process thus far. If a few individuals seeking personal gain can bypass an official document such as a township's comprehensive plan, which involved active participation by residents of the township, well, Dunn County, we're watching. Terry Nichols, Town of Colfax Plan Commission.
Okay, thank you very much, Terry. So we have a public hearing today. So we will start our meeting today by calling the public on hearing to order for the request to rezone the Hex LLC property. And what I'll start by doing is asking our staff if they will confirm that the proper notifications have been issued for this.
Good morning, committee. Yes, the public hearing notice was published in the Colfax Messenger for September 3rd and September 10th.
Thank you. And just to remind people that this is the public hearing will be the last opportunity for public comment prior to this topic going to the county board. If anyone wants to speak, I'm going to ask them to come up to the microphone, give their name and address, and be sworn in. Let's see. After we have a presentation from the staff, we'll have an opportunity for some questions by the committee, and then if the applicants are here and they would like to make any comments, we'll provide the time for that, and any public comments that anyone has. And then we'll close the hearing, and we will take action on the item after the hearing is closed. So with that, Tammy, why don't you provide us with your report?
Thank you. So, as you was included in the application or in the committee packet was the application rezone request from Hedges LLC. The site address for this request is E5 586 County Road P, and that's Menominee. There's actually 2 parcel ID numbers that are involved. The rezone request is for approximately 7.79 acres, where they're requesting to go from general ag to light industrial. Again, the Colfax Messenger had the public hearing notice posted for September 3rd and September 10th. Neighboring property owners were also notified within 300 feet. And since this report was issued, we received 1 electronic public comment from a Justin Walton, who was in support of the rezone request.
Okay.
So general information is included here. As you can see on the bottom left, there's an existing parcel where the operation is at today that is zoned light industrial. They're requesting to rezone the adjacent parcel of land in addition to another sliver that is currently zone GA. So again, you can kind of see in the left or on the bottom right-hand corner where the existing operation is. And the overall intent is to relocate the operations to new structures on the left side or left parcel, excuse me. So the applicants have developed a draft CSM shown on the bottom left. So that's overall what the request is for, is to create a new CSM, basically combining these 2 lots. The way the lot is set up right now, the residential structures are zone GA, but the agricultural structures that are out there, that barn, is what was zoned light industrial. And it kind of seems a little confusing with the layout, but I don't know if there's any questions about this portion of the overall layout, the intent.
Questions?
Sure, absolutely.
So on the bottom picture, is the right side the same as the top picture?
I see why, yeah, so
Where's lot 1 on the
lot
bottom?
1, would you? Okay, so lot 1 is actually over here.
Okay,
Apologize. And so what the request is really looking at is right here. So a new CSM was created for this lot 1 now. And if I go to the next slide, hopefully this will clear it up a little
Yeah.
better. So that's that lot 1 that we've seen. That is now, they acquired this this lot 1. And so ultimately they're going to be creating a new lot here. So again, it's going to sever off. The intent is just, we couldn't create a lot today for the existing dwelling and those structures to be on the same lot until this rezone request happens. Right, so this will all be light industrial for now, allowing then this new lot to be created. If we're tracking.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm just curious about the original zoning as light industrial in a C of GA. How, I mean, it's not totally germane to our conversation, but I'm quite curious about that.
I went back in time to try to figure out when and how.
Did we do it?
It was done at some point. What I would gather is that when there was the comprehensive rewrite back in 2014, it was designated at that time then as light industrial. However, like the future land use maps never reflected that.
Yeah.
So that was what the little confusion. But yes, when I suspect when 2014, when the rewrite was done, that it was designated appropriately at that time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so transitioning to kind of, thanks for the lead into the, this slide here then, Diane, is really, again, the future land use maps are showing farmland for both the town and the county. However, that's not reflective of what was out there under zoning. Overall, the site is flat. The soils, again, if we think of the agriculture priorities, it's the prime farmland soil classifications. And in this case, we have farmland of statewide importance. It's not falling in the class 1, class 2, typically that we, of a priority soils to be protecting. Just some images from the site, again, from the road looking in. It clearly doesn't look light industrial from the road. This would be the new parcel, the new location, just adjacent to the existing operation. Again, the overall intent is that they would be building new structures here. Once those structures are completed and up and running, then this then would get rezoned to general agriculture and then sold off eventually, or utilized as they see fit. We would no longer operate once the new site is up and running. Again, just our standard procedures as far as staff analysis go, with the consistency with our comprehensive plan. There's that question of consistency, but however, it's, based on what's being utilized right now, and relocating the business to the adjacent parcel consolidates that activity in one area rather than introducing scattered uses elsewhere. The town of Weston did review the request and they are supportive of it. Again, by, basically flip-flopping the land use, there's really not a change in that development trend for the area. Staff analysis overall seemed to be consistent with what the use is and what the community around there is used to. The big thing, that after the rezone occurs, they would have, and part of the permitting process, they would come for zoning permits. Driveway permit would be required. Any land disturbance over 1 acre would be regulated by the Wisconsin DNR, so stormwater would be addressed. So there'd be additional measures implemented with new construction than what's actually out there today. So staff finds that the proposed rezone to light industrial is consistent with the intent of consolidating the existing business operation to a more efficient site and does not create an incompatible land use pattern. To ensure that the request represents a relocation rather than an expansion, staff would recommend that it's once the new structures are completed, that the rezone then occurs to the existing operation to general agriculture. As a conditional approval, we also recommend that access permit driveway be sought early on the process here with the highway department to ensure that access to the new lot is suitable for light industrial. Any questions?
Any questions for Tammy?
I have one. So that recommendation that is in here, does that have any kind of binding force, or is that just like, hey, I think you should do this?
Thank you, great question. If the committee wants to support that, then I would include that in your recommendation for approval, and then we would carry that forward in our ordinance amendment official document that gets signed by the county board.
Further questions? Okay. Thank you, Tammy. Are the landowners here? If the landowners would, if you're interested in speaking, that'd be great. Come up to the front up there. I'll just swear you in. Name and address, and I'll swear you in. There you go. Okay. Name and
Good morning.
address. Yeah.
My name is Dennis Blau. I live at 426 14th Street Northeast. I'm helping Hugh and Dan with their project
Before you
here.
do that, I said to tell you, but I gotta swear you.
Oh,
wouldn't,
I'm
so.
sorry.
You swear that your testimony today will be truthful in every respect.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Again, I'm helping Hugh and Dan with their project. I appreciate the help. I appreciate you looking at it. Appreciate Tammy's help. What ultimately what Hugh and Dan would like to do is separate this again into 3 parcels to what's shown. And then, build out this over the next couple of years. So, I guess the only thing they would request is that until this parcel is fully built out, that they can utilize both parcels for their business. And then they're not opposed to rezoning the east parcel back to, general agriculture.
Any questions? The committee. So they would be okay with us attaching that condition to it, subject to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Dan? Hugh, you're okay with that?
We just like to, I guess, we just like to have as much time as we can, because the idea is we're a small outfit.
Yeah.
And we're trying not to borrow, hundreds of thousands, trying to kind of do it as we go. Our goal is a couple years, put up 1 building a year. We figure 2 big buildings, time we're done. And then very much the idea is to sell the farm as a hobby farm, or maybe somebody with a wedding barn or something like that, but we will, it's a farm. So, it's just that, with the economy and things, we don't, if we possibly can, we like, a little softness in exactly when that has to happen. Our goal is definitely, 2 years. But just in case, we just, as much leeway as you're
Sure.
willing to give us.
Sure.
Up to maybe 5 years, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah. So just for people who couldn't hear on the tape, Chuck said that they would accept yes, they would accept the desire to rezone that, but they really would like to keep it like it is while they make this transition. They're not a large operation, and this has to happen in phases, and providing the zoning redo as they requested would allow them to do it in a kind of a manageable manner financially and personally. Any other questions from the committee? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there are no other comments or questions from anybody else from the public, have a comment or question? If there are none, then I will close the public hearing. And without objection, I would ask if it's okay with the committee to move consideration of action on this item up to this point in the hearing. So it'd be 6, replace 7 with what? Okay, which one is it? With item 11. Any objection to that?
No.
Okay. So we will then, we've had a public hearing, we've heard the comments, asked questions. So consideration of the request for rezone. Any comments or questions from the committee? And so
Mr. Chair,
yeah,
I'm wondering, as we look at, probably the only question is, our conditions of approval, and probably the only question on that is when to ask for the other parcel to change. We could put a time limit on it, like 5 years or 3 years or something like that, or something a little more vague, like when the movement has been substantially made, or when they, something like that. Just, I'm throwing that out to see what you think and see what Tammy thinks, but she has to enforce it.
thoughts, Tammy?
How about a hybrid of something that, you know, ones that, no operations have been, you know, transitioned not to exceed so many years.
Anything else? Okay. Okay, so,
Sorry, hang on.
yeah,
Is this something then that would go with the property? The intention, of course, is not to sell right now, but supposing it were to get sold somewhere along the way, would this condition go with it?
Uh, we could be creative. I'm thinking of looking at Tom, maybe could there be a note on the CSM or something else, that could occur that we can also bind it so that there's, you know, more teeth to it, or else we could even require, a zoning affidavit to be recorded against, the property, with register of deeds stating this condition. So there are some different mechanisms that we can use, outside of it just being sitting in a rezone document. And maybe I'd recommend the affidavit, a zoning affidavit of such.
okay. All right.
Yeah, that seems okay to me. I don't want to, you know, create something too onerous on the people, but I do feel like this protection does make sense. So that sounds good to me.
Okay, any other questions? So a motion would be in order to approve the rezone, subject to staff developing would you call it
A zoning affidavit?
a zoning affidavit that would establish the intention to rezone back to general ag once the owners have completed the transfer of the operations.
Or
Or
not to exceed 5 years.
in a time frame not to exceed 5 years.
Well done.
Mouthful, huh? Does that sound like someone want to make that motion?
I would like to make that motion as Tom described.
Okay, is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Discussion of the motion. Questions about the motion? All in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion is approved. Thank you all for coming today.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much, Ken. Thank you.
Okay. We have a really mixed agenda today, and we have another item that is reasonable to, I think, request adjustment on the agenda. So Alec is here to, as regularly happens, to talk to us about the conservation aids project. Wildlife damage. Excuse me. Yeah, no, Chase is going to do the other one. But anyway, and that would be, yeah, item 10. So in interest of his time and workload, without objection, would the committee mind moving that item up?
No.
No objection? Okay. Alec, you want to come up and give us your spiel?
All right, I'm Alex Andelius with USDA Wildlife Services. I administer the wildlife damage program on behalf of Dunn County. I'm here today to present and hopefully approve the 2026 budget. I did throw this document in. This is just a summary of enrollment in the program year to date. I wasn't going to go through it in great detail. There's going to be at least 4 claims in the county this year, so I'll be back at 2 meetings or 1 or 2 meetings before March 1st to get crop prices approved and present claims for approval, but I could answer any questions anyone has on this. Otherwise, I can get into the budget.
Any questions? Some of the same same problems from some of the same people, but new ones.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of chronic farms that enroll almost annually, but then there are new enrollees every year. Some people drop out, some people come in. No dead llamas yet this year, though, so we're doing good.
That's right, yeah. Okay, any questions of Alex?
So the 2026 budget looks the same. It has increased $851.95 due to an increase, a cost of living adjustment to federal salaries, anticipated cost of living adjustment, and that may not come to fruition, and some mileage adjustment. Budget covers salary, abatement materials, mileage, and then one of the line items on here is deer donation program. So I think that was included as an actionable item. There's only one participating processor in the county, Johnny's in Ridgeland. They don't take a ton of deer, but it is good to still have one processor participating. I can answer any questions you all have on this. Otherwise, yeah, I'd recommend approval. I think things are going smoothly.
I'm just curious, who does the abatement? Is that the responsibility of the claimant?
Correct. So it's a 75-25% cost share. What we accept is the 25% for what I would call temporary abatement, like shooting permits, temporary fencing,
Okay.
scare devices, is the producer's implementation, maintenance, installation of the abatement. The only abatement I would do personally is bear trapping on some of these sites. If someone was enrolled for bear damage in corn, or like last year, we had bear depredation of livestock. Otherwise, it's the enrollee doing the abatement.
Thank you, I should have known that.
Yep.
Chase.
Yeah, and just for the committees, to remind you all and anyone listening, so basically this budget that is before you today, we have incorporated annually into our county budget because we pay for any expenses incurred through the program, and then we seek reimbursement through the Department of Natural Resources. So this is a money in, money out. Very little impact to the levy. I know that's a topic of conversation lately. We do have some staff time in it, but it's very limited staff time, so.
And to that point, there's 1,600 on here
Right.
that comes from the state for county administration for any staff time that is spent dealing with this.
Well, once again, important and worthwhile program. Any questions from the committee? Motion to approve the 2026 wildlife damage abatement claims program budget and participation in the venison donation program from someone. Monica, is there a second? Mike? Any questions?
Can you go, does the state, amount that you bill a DNR, is that the amount that we get back? Is there a certain amount for Dunn County that we can use?
It-
If you like turn in for abatement
Uh-huh.
to the like Wisconsin DNR, is that the amount that we can get back then? Or is there a certain amount that we're limited to?
So the expenses to the program cannot exceed that bottom number there. If something were to happen, like we built a permanent fence or there was a huge spike in enrollment, I would come back before this committee to do a budget addendum, but expenses cannot exceed that in 2026, but they may not reach that number.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion is approved. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Okay, so Back onto our regular agenda. Item 7, staff reports, register of deeds. Heather.
Good morning. Don't have anything further to add, I guess, unless there's any questions.
Any questions?
Good.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Environmental services. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. My report is up on the screen here. Kind of a typical month, August, 4 certified survey maps. Actually, it was a little behind normal. 4 for a month was quite slow, actually. But you can see where the new parcels were created: New Haven, Peru, Red Cedar, and Sheridan. New Haven led the pack, so to speak, with 2 new parcels. Peru led by acreage. So there are the totals. 19 maps of surveys came in for review, or were submitted for filing. We worked on 19 public land survey system corners in the towns of Dunn, O'Galley, Menominee, Peru, Red Cedar, and Sheridan. I attended a couple steering committee meetings for our ERP system, department head meeting, some other training, HR essentials, and I attended a quarterly meeting of the Wisconsin County Surveyors Association over in Wisconsin Rapids. A remonumentation request was submitted by a private surveyor last fall in the town of Peru. It involves some extensive work along the Chippewa River, and timing is everything. We didn't want to be working on the river in the cold weather in case something would happen, the freezing water. So we saved it until this summer, and we actually wrapped that up here during the month of August. So before I get into that, are there any questions on the rest of my report? I'd like to just go a little deeper into our remonumentation request.
Questions? Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna just kill the lights for a second. Hopefully it's not too dark. The graphics just display a little bit better. There. Okay. Hopefully this isn't a problem for anybody. So what I'm gonna do is bring up the county GIS website. And I just thought I'm gonna use this as an educational opportunity on the important work our office does, right? And how it benefits the county taxpayers. So if everybody's familiar with Maradine, right? Here's a little burg of Maradine, not much there. There's a dead end road coming up. There's a boat landing here. So a private landowner in here needs a survey done, and of this parcel right here. And this west line is it's not really a 40 line, but it's a government lot line. We have government lots created in here because we have a water boundary, but think of this as, a 40 line. They need this line ran and the south line ran. Well, the south line is just a simple, there's a county monument here and a county monument here, but this line requires a full section protraction of a square mile. So the private surveyor got looking at it. Here's where section 11. So what I have up there represents a square mile, 1640s, if you will, 640 acres in this square mile block. And there's corners that control all the sectional subdivision lines within that square mile. So that would be a huge project because some of the corners that are needed are out on what's an island now. And getting to it is quite a challenge. So let's just, so I'm going to go in here. This is a plat book from 1927, and it just shows, because Dunn County owns a considerable amount of land out on these islands right now. But as you can see in 1927, we have a lot of private, so we're working in section 11, which is right here. And Dunn County doesn't own anything out there at that time. It was all privately owned. Historically, there's been a lot of floods out there, I believe, in the 1930s, and then the county came in and basically forced everybody out, bought them out, just because of the hazard mitigation. Everybody's home, I think there were 2 or 3 floods in a matter of 10 years out there. So right now we have a lot of county-owned property out here because of that. But in the past, there was private ownership, and then you're going to see how that comes into play. So what I have up here And I don't mean for this to get into a big, long, drawn-out surveying exercise, so I'm going to keep it very simple. But again, we're working in section 11. The private landowner needs this line ran right here. Well, in order to run that line, the surveyor has to break down this square mile. So everywhere there is a green X, there needs to be a monument in place. Monuments control property lines, not some green lines on a county GIS website. People think they do, but that's totally false. Monuments mark property corners. Monuments are what surveyors need to measure from. And our job as the county surveyor's office is to make sure we have monuments at these corners with accurate coordinates. So again, the 5 corners with the green X's are required to run this line. Private surveyor has to measure this monument, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Then they extend straight lines across, compute the center of section. Once the center of section is computed, this 40 corner, if you will, goes halfway between here and here. This one goes halfway from here to here. And then they compute this point halfway on the midpoint of this line here, and they can extend those lines across as well. So you can see 5 corners need 5 government land corners that were set in 1849 are needed to run the direction of this line. It's a huge project. The private landowner has to go out there. It's going to result in a huge bill for their client. So back to these 5 green X's, there's monuments at those corners already, except for this one. The 2 red circles, there are no monuments there since 1849. So these 2 corners have to be reestablished. If we have an issue, we get into this corner and there's no evidence there, then we have to start going out a half mile in each direction. So the private surveyor doesn't need this corner, but he does need this one. Well, there's some evidence of a fence over here, and this is where the private ownership back in 1927 comes into play. If you remember that sketch I had up, there's fences in here. It doesn't look like it right now, but there are fences in there. So let me jump back over to, this is a 1938 air photo. Does everybody see the road? Here's a road. Here's a homestead. There's a fence running here. There's another fence here. We got out there, we located those fences and we used those fences for evidence. We ended up setting a marker right here in the old road bed on a projection of this fence. It wasn't easy. It took a lot of time to get out there and do all this. I'm going to just skip over some pictures, but this is, so back to, I apologize, but back to this corner right here, right up here. That's how it looks on an air photo. This is how it looks in reality. It's nothing but prickly ash, grown up brush. If you look, you can see the hole in the sky here. This is looking straight north. We're standing in the middle of that old road. Doesn't look like an old road, does it? Because it's all grown up. But you can actually, when you're out there and trim this brush away, you can see the edges of the road where it was gravel, where it had been graded back in the 20s. So we used that road cut as evidence of where that section corner was. We actually placed a monument right here, a rebar with a cap in the middle of the old road on the projection of a fence be off to the left here. So let's just go back. And again, I don't want to take up too much time, but I can get very passionate about the work we do. So that's the corner right there. We reestablished that. Back in 2014, those of you who were on the committee at the time, we found evidence of an original bearing tree there that was marked in 1849. So we have an existing corner there. We put a monument in from that bearing tree. So we were able to position this, again, the surveyor needs this corner, but we're a long ways away from the corner he needs, right? We're working on this one, so we can establish this. Because this corner, there's absolutely no evidence there. So we need to establish this one, this one, this one, and this one. So to make a long story short, we found all kinds of evidence out here on the island. Old fences, we projected everything over. When we computed all these positions, these half miles are within we measure within 5 feet of what they measured in 1849 based on the old fences that we found out there. So, so again, that's just a quick, here's section 11, just a blown up. And again, this is the line here that had to be run. This was the corner that was being requested, but it involved going into 2 or 3 other corners, and a bunch of logistics. And I'll just show you some pictures. picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So just some pictures of the river. I tell people we have the best job in the world. We get to meet all kinds of landowners, see beautiful, beautiful scenery. We're not sitting behind a desk all day, although there is some desk work involved ahead of time to, do research and compile things. But it may look pristine, but the mosquitoes, just picture swarms of mosquitoes. Luckily, there was no wood ticks, but prickly ash, mosquitoes. Yeah, it was about as bad as I've seen. Another condition we had to deal with was low water levels. Can everybody see the sand here? Usually that's all covered with water. So in places it was a struggle. This was our mode of transportation, my boat. It worked fine until the river dropped a foot over the course of a couple weeks and we had to go back. But we'd load our gear in there and I'd ferry Troy and Greg up to the work location and took everything we needed for the day. So, but here it just really illustrates how low the river levels are. My boat wasn't working at the end, so then Chase was nice enough to loan us his boat. It didn't draft as much water or as far into the water. It was a flat bottom John boat, so we could actually go in places my boat wouldn't go. So just an example of collaboration, right? Trying to get things done to the end result. And then the last picture, save the best for the last, right? The one morning we're out, we beached the boat and found out we were not alone on that island. There's bear tracks. So anyway, I just wanted to, I guess, further illustrate the work we do and how much time went into this project, which ultimately is going to save a landowner some time. And it benefits the county, right? Because we're going to greatly increase our parcel mapping out here. We know where these positions are now. We have accurate coordinates. And so, yeah, a lot of things came together to work on this project, and we're glad that we got it done and nobody got hurt.
How
So-
much time, Tom? Can you give
Oh,
me an
between the
estimate?
research, we were down there, it was 3 or 4 days in the field. Because by the time you leave, get down, unload the boat, and then the low water levels, we had to carry the boat. Normally the water's up to the boat landing, but it wasn't. So we had to carry the boat and drag it across sand for probably 300 feet just to get out to the main channel. And then at the end of the day, when you're tired and hot and sweaty, you have to carry everything back to the truck. It would be so nice if we could just put the trailer in the water and drive right up to it, but that wasn't the case. So we had probably 4 days in the field and then Greg's time researching, another day at least in the office researching. And so, yeah, it was a considerable amount of time.
Y'all deserve a raise.
Well, it's part of the job. It makes up for all those corners where you just drive up to with a pickup truck that fall in a blacktop road that take an hour and a half to do, So anyway, that concludes my staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, any questions? So we are obligated to establish a corner if it is requested by a citizen?
We're not obligated, but that's been our policy.
Our policy,
I mean,
yeah.
if we're not gonna do it, who's
Somebody's
going
gotta do it.
Somebody has to
So
do
it's a
it.
legit, really, it does seem like it's a legitimate county
Mhm.
function that serves everybody's interest.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, any other questions? Thanks, Tom.
I just want to ask one question.
Okay.
So how big of a site does like Meridian have to get to the river? Is it very, very much, or is there like a little park there or something to get to it?
I can zoom in and show you on the website here. There's just a very small turnaround. There is a pavilion here, and there's been some discussions on that. It's actually located on private property. The public in the past has been using this, leaving junk, grilling out, and it's actually owned. There's a survey done on this right now. 2 surveys actually. This parcel sits on an outlot, I believe, or the pavilion does. And the private landowner wanted to fence it off. Well, there's a town road coming in here, right? That's another jurisdiction of Peru. And that road right of way comes very close to the front of that pavilion. So the town worked with the private landowners, hired a private surveying firm, and they put an angle point in the end of this road right here. They put a kink in here, put an angle point to pull it the right of way further away from that pavilion. And then the private landowner was, my understanding was going to fence the right of way to keep people out of the pavilion. That hasn't been done as of a few weeks ago when we were down there. So there is really no public gathering place, but it is a publicly accessible boat landing to the water. So you just park along the road. There's kind of a turnaround. If you had a big rig, you'd never get in there. You wouldn't be able to turn the circle. And this water is very shallow right now. It's really hard to see again, but it's really shallow in here until you get out to the main channel. So in the spring it would be fine, but right now you wouldn't. A canoe is about your best option to get out there. So. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks, Don.
I don't know how I follow that. In the packet was our land use and planning staff report for the month. Again, just very busy. Our sanitation staff have been out. They had 48 inspections, different varying inspections on the month of August. And another staff members just tackling our property files, and over, 300, well over 300 files have now been actually completed and located within our high density property files, which has been big. We were finally getting out of the boxes and accessible records, which is a huge success for us. And again, just over Board of Adjustment, we had a variance request for a campground in the town of Weston, onto planning. Susan's here today, so we can give some updates. The farmland owner survey was open through September 5th. It's actually still open now, so there's still opportunities for, surveys to still trickle in. The housing work group has been busy with their development-friendly municipality process, so that I think there's a lot of exciting things just come from that. Our focus groups are still staying active. I'm looking forward to obviously the discussion today, and then upcoming meetings in the September and October here. Any questions?
Any questions?
I like your report. It's nice, easy to follow, and it's nice to see the BOA report each time too. Appreciate it.
Okay. Chase.
All right, good morning again, everyone. My report's in the packet, along with a few attachments from some flyers, as well as some brief reports. I'd be happy to answer any questions related to those. The only other thing I would just bring up that's included in the report is number 5 on there is our surface water planning grant for a project on the Red Cedar River. So this is a project that's it's known as the Stewart Bank right now. It's a high bluff eroding bank on the Red Cedar River. Contributes a large amount of sediment to the river itself, which ultimately ends up in Tainter Lake. The Lake District, now that they've been in existence, has been active in one of their subcommittees, the sedimentation subcommittee, and is revisiting some of these longstanding resource concerns along the Red Cedar River. So our office has worked on this project for a long time. The biggest hurdle is coming up with funding in order to actually do a restoration project to stabilize the bank. So at this point, we did a bunch of research on all of our old data, and we've applied for a surface water planning grant to the DNR. That was a pre-application that was due on Monday. And the Tainter Lake Rehabilitation District is going to kick in $3,000 towards the design or final design of this project. This is not the construction phase, obviously. That is a huge, another undertaking that will yet to be seen, I guess. But at this point, if we're awarded this planning grant, we can do some final engineering and get some things approved in order to move forward and get some better cost estimates on that project. One that is not included in this report because it came in kind of last minute is another surface water restoration grant pre-application we submitted on Monday as well. And that is for a project adjacent to Lake O'Galley. Immediately to the east of Pineview Park, which is a county park, and boat landing, one of the two accesses to Lake O'Galley. That project is another long-standing issue of sedimentation coming down from the watershed above, sedimenting in the boat landing and areas of Lake O'Galley. So between the Lake O'Galley Association that's formed, they're in support of this. Primary support is through the O'Galley Sportsman's Club, and they are willing to contribute up to $20,000 at this time towards the construction of what will likely be an earthen dam to control that erosion and runoff. So in this pre-application that we've submitted to DNR would be for a $50,000 restoration grant. And with a combination of that would hopefully fund a project to stabilize that area. So I mentioned those two because at our next committee meeting, I will bring resolutions authorizing us to participate in the final grant application, which is due November 15th. So I can provide more details at that time if you'd like. But beyond that, be happy to answer any other questions.
How much will we have to reduce our private well monitoring efforts next year?
So currently we had, it was last year, we were awarded that Small Communities
Right.
Big Challenges grant or award. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head right now, but I believe we have at least 2 more years of private well monitoring through the funds that are available there. In my report, I included a different grant that we partnered with Public Health on to provide some additional funding that could maybe stretch that EPA grant out further into the future. But at this point, we're on track to do at least 2 more years, I believe, with the funds that we have.
I heard that in Health and Human Services Board, but I was wondering if we had enough money to
Yeah.
actually continue.
Yeah, and we have that money in hand, so it's not a reimbursement basis. So we'll likely, like we did last year, have a carry forward request for any balance to continue that next year.
Perfect, thank you.
Mhm.
Right.
Do we still have that well intel water quantity thing going on? And how many?
So that's a point of interest lately. So back in 2015, we started with 8 wells. Sometime around 2017, we've dropped that down to 6 wells. Those 6 wells have been operating up until the spring of this year. They have been in place for almost a decade, and as you can imagine, with all the stuff that goes on with Wisconsin weather and just wear and tear, those things are beginning to fail on us. So we are in a process right now of trying to do our homework and find out, basically do a cost benefit analysis on that. And at some point, it may come to you for some help in decision making on what we do going forward. We budget around $2,500 a year for maintenance as well as a subscription to the Well Intel software package and program. Right now, Heather in our office is pulling her hair out trying to clean the data that we have for, I think there's over 54,000 data points that need to get cleaned so we can basically get a better understanding of what that data is telling us. But I think we're trying to consider our options. Originally, this was part of a tri-county effort, so Chippewa, Eau Claire, and Dunn County went in on this together. Eau Claire has already canceled their program. We're going to be talking with Chippewa again just to see where they're at. But right now, we're trying to weigh out the pros and cons and the cost benefit analysis because this is taking more staff time as well. So
And you gave us a real good presentation on that. I don't know how long ago, I think, didn't you?
yeah, I think it was the first summer I was here, so probably 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that river that goes into like O'Galley, does that also flow into the Chippewa and Pepin County?
It does. Yep. Yep.
They wanna step up and maybe help pay a little bit too then.
So there's a lot going on with the O'Galley watershed right now. Right now, all counties, so Pierce, St. Croix, Pepin, and Dunn, we are participating together, cooperating together in a watershed planning grant that was obtained through the USDA. It's housed through Pierce County Land Conservation Department. Basically, we're writing a surface watershed plan. That river comes into the Lake O'Galley because of the Lake O'Galley Dam that's there. And Pepin County is further downstream from that. Most of the sedimentation and everything stops within that water body. I mean, certainly there's partnerships and conversation we could have with Pepin. So yeah, we can follow up on that. And I know the Sportsman's Club there has been very active. The Lake Association is becoming more and more active. The O'Galley Sportsman's Club for many years has stuck a lot of time, energy, and money into that lake. So they are fully on board to help support projects like this. So,
We own that
and Dunn County owns that dam.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I think I missed the context about the wells that Mike was asking about. Can you fill me in?
Sure. So we have in around 2014, 2015, in that timeframe, there was a lot of emphasis throughout the state on groundwater quantity and not just quality. So looking at making sure we have enough groundwater supply to support land use activities. Of particular concern is the central sands of Wisconsin, where we have lakes drying up at that time. A lot of discussion around high capacity wells and their impact to groundwater. Also along that time frame was the kind of boom of the frac sand era and impacts that industrial sand mining might have on groundwater, not only by changing the landscape, but also high capacity wells that were needed to process that sand. So that's where this Well Intel is a private company that provides sensors that are installed on, in our case, they're all on private wells, with the exception of one that's on Springbrook Town Hall well. And they are basically a sonar sensor that tracks the elevation of the static water table within the well. And we've tracked that all this time. I think at the report we may have given a few years ago, it was very consistent with, when it doesn't rain and we have a drought, the water table drops, right? When it rains, it rebounds within a period of time. We're not necessarily seeing a trend in either direction that we're losing groundwater or we're gaining groundwater. Certainly climate impacts, this throughout. So part of our discussion and evaluation is if you had a blank check, you would not stop monitoring. You would monitor because it's never a bad thing to have data. But right now it's, can we use the data? Can we make decisions off of it? And what is it going to take for us to get that data into a usable format? And that's where it's coming to, where do we want to be spending our time and that sort of thing. Yep.
Anyone else? I do have one. I don't know if you can provide an update or not, but over the weekend happened to drive by a field in north of Menominee that we had talked about before that had a significant erosion problem. And I noticed it got mentioned in the minutes of the Lake Tainer or the Red Cedar Partnership Program, that there was some work being done on addressing that situation. And I know you probably can't say much about it, but is there anything you can update us on that?
Yeah, so that property, primarily on the west side of Highway 25, between our office, at the time, Corporation Counsel, here at the county, Nick Lang, as well as primary driver with DNR, worked with that landowner to hopefully stop erosion from coming from that site. It was in cereal rye for a number of years. Waterways, concentrated flow channels where a lot of the erosion was taking place, are stable at the moment. It is now growing corn in a no-till situation. We are expecting that the concentrated flow channels and the waterways will stay in a grass vegetation to be stable. Based on the nutrient management plan that's on file and the crop rotation, technically they are meeting tolerable soil loss, but it's gonna be just a watch and see. So it's come a long way from what it was. One of the impacts is on the east side of the road, which is Dunn County Historical Society property. And there was a wetland there that through the years had basically filled in and it was non-functioning. If you drive by there today, you will see equipment working in that area. And I probably should have included that in our report. But basically between U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Dunn County Historical Society, NRCS, and our office, we're doing a wetland restoration project there to kind of restore that wetland back to what it's intended for. Unfortunately, if erosion does continue or starts up again, that wetland would be filled in again. But likely, there are tools and mechanisms within our own county ordinance as well as DNR that we can follow up with on. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you for the, as always, excellent staff reports. 7C, Comprehensive Plan, Historical Cultural Resources. Susan, welcome.
The microphone.
There we go. Okay. Susan Badkey with Regional Planning. Thanks for allowing me to join you today. Real quickly, where we've been, I'm going to give you a little update as to the project status. Last time I was here, we talked about intergovernmental cooperation. As a reminder, the comprehensive plan in and of itself is not regulation. And there are certain things, so your zoning, land division, official mapping, under state law, those items have to be consistent with your comprehensive plan. There are items such as annexation, right? That public comment that came up that was read into the record. Some things are outside kind of the purview. The county doesn't have a ton of, perhaps you have some influence, right? But oversight on. So I just want to, the comprehensive plan, and it really feeds into that intergovernmental cooperation. I think it was Mike who mentioned at the last meeting, what in terms of the county, how do we ensure that, for example, the city's working with towns, right? Well, you can't require that, but you can encourage intergovernmental cooperation, joint planning, and so that's likely where we'll be heading with that intergovernmental cooperation element. In terms of project status, again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but we have 9 required elements under state statute of the comprehensive plan. I've kind of highlighted or added an FG next to those that have special focus groups attached with them. But today we're going to be talking about historical cultural resources. Under state law, that's kind of coupled with agricultural and natural resources. We're kind of splitting that out and talking about the cultural piece separately. And I suspect that will be a standalone kind of chapter of the plan, because that agricultural, that farmland preservation plan gets wrapped into that agricultural. Natural resources really warrants its own chapter, working with Chase and land conservation and the land and water plan, that it just is, and the importance of that to Dunn County, right? So I suspect cultural, historical, that'll be its own kind of standalone chapter. But that's the element that we're going to focus on today. In terms of focus groups, the housing group, and Tammy provided a little update on this in her staff report. We've been active. We met with the county's housing work group and presented draft goals, objectives, policies, and strategies to that group. That was maybe 2 weeks ago. We met with the work group, and we'll be meeting with the housing action team later today to present. We took the work group's feedback, incorporated that, and we'll then be bringing it to the Housing Action Team. We discussed and we said there are these existing bodies that exist. Let's use them as the focus group rather than starting from scratch. Similarly, economic development, working with Adam Akala, your excellent economic development director. We said, Adam, what do you see? Who do you see as the most appropriate groups rather than, again, starting from scratch? What bodies, what groups do we have existing in the county that we might be able to tap into and use? And so we've put together an online survey that went out to the GMDC, Greater Menominee Development Corporation, and the Dunn County Economic Development Committee, members of those groups, and we're getting input back. We then anticipate October 21st. So we sent them a survey and asked them, what they see is kind of getting their input, kind of like that worksheet that was provided for intergovernmental cooperation. This just allowed easier completion. October 21st, Adam already had scheduled a joint meeting of those two bodies. And so we'll be taking the input, the feedback from that survey, and then drafting some goals, objectives, policies, strategies to present to them on October 21st to get their feedback, their input. Does this reflect? Is this what you'd like to see? And then ultimately that will move forward, and we'll bring that to you folks for your review and discussion. Similar to the housing, we're going to take the Housing Action Team's feedback, rework some things, and then I see us bringing that forward to you, specifically those goals, objectives, policy, strategies for review and discussion in October. Villages, we're still working on that. Hope to have those. That's kind of a focus group where we're inviting all the villages to come. It's relationship building, but it's also just to get an understanding of what are some of their issues or concerns. We're hoping to schedule that for October. Same with water, natural resources. Agriculture, we held our first meeting back in June. We'll be scheduling that second agricultural meeting probably in October, November. We have the farmland owner survey that I'll touch on those results, and we'll be again then bringing forth draft goals, objectives, policy strategies to that agricultural focus group for them to provide input, feedback on, and then those will come to you folks for your continued review and discussion. And then a land use regulation focus group in October, November. So we are making progress. It might seem like it's going slow, but there's a lot of coordination and data gathering that is involved. Tammy and I also attended at the request of the town board. We were in New Haven last night, shared an update on where we're at. They had some just general questions. We were invited there. We'll be meeting with all of the zoned towns, and we've had that conversation before. But this was a special request. They're unzoned, and so we were happy to attend and just talk to them about they're looking to update their plan. And so again, it was another way just to kind of inform them of the project and where we're at. So we were happy to do that. In terms of and again, this is a small, these focus groups are meant to not be all encompassing, right? But meant to be, kind of dialed in 10 to 12 folks. Of course, economic development is going to be a larger group, and that's okay, right? We're trying to get folks' opinions and get feedback on things. Before I move on, I do want to, because I brought it up, the agricultural focus group, we did have that farmland owner survey. And so I wanted to provide you a quick update. I took a look at SurveyMonkey before I drove over here this morning, and just to see where the numbers are at. Survey is still open online. I'll probably be closing that here in the next week or two so that I can really start diving into the data analysis. So I don't have any results to share with you other than numbers, and that's okay. So in total, we mailed out 1,782 surveys. So close to 1,800 surveys were mailed out. That was really fun. But we did it. We got it done. We have a great team at the Regional Planning Commission, so I'm thankful for all the support. In total, we received, and this is hard copy and online, a total of 703 responses. That's about a 39% response rate. And so I'm actually quite pleased with that for a survey. There was a lot of support from your county staff and other partners, right, who promoted the survey after our last meeting. I think we said, let's try to do another plug. And so kudos to the county and partners for doing that additional outreach. I do think, and we even had, I think, one survey come in yesterday, a hard copy mailed survey. So they're still trickling in, right? So no harm in accepting those that come in now. But like I say, we'll probably officially close it later this week or next week so that I can really start diving into the data. Any questions on where we're at, where we're headed? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move into kind of our topic of discussion for today, which is historical and cultural resources. Included in your packet was a memo. I'm going to reference that along with some draft goals, objectives, policies. Hopefully you had a chance to review them in advance. I'm going to walk you through a few things. The county's current comprehensive plan does not address cultural or historical resources. So there really isn't mention of that, other than some people see outdoor recreation facilities as kind of a cultural resource. Sometimes that's seen as it. We tend to, in our office, we tend to view that more as a community facility, right? So it's not saying that it can sometimes be both, right? If you have an open space that has some historical feature, right, it can be both. But generally, in terms of parks, outdoor recreation, we discuss those things under community facilities, not cultural resources. So I do want to spend just a little bit of time going through some information, getting your kind of thoughts on historical and cultural resources. So in the county, and this is specific to historical, let's talk about historical first, right? There are 8 properties listed on the National Register. 7 of these properties are also listed on the state register, okay? And so you can see here kind of that listing. We've got the Mabel Tainter that of course comes up in our survey as kind of that's the cultural and historical Colfax Municipal Building. There's some others. So you have countywide 8 really kind of historical sites or buildings. The Wisconsin Historical Society also maintains kind of a listing of just some historical properties, no special designation, no special regulation, no special benefit, just an acknowledgement that there are other historical sites that might be, interesting, right? So in the county, in Dunn County, there are 749 properties on which are listed on what's called the Wisconsin Architecture and History Inventory, AHI. That's a public database. You can go online and see all of those 749. I'm not going to list them all out, right? But recognizing that there's additional kind of historical buildings. Some of them, it's really just a historical record. Some might not even be there, right? I worked, I think it was in the town of Lake Holcomb when I worked with them, and I said, oh, you have other, they said that structure is not even there anymore. It's not a maintained, right, registry. It's an acknowledgement that was a historical property, historical site. It might be worth considering. And most of them are private properties, right? Again, no special benefit, no special no regulations or restrictions, just an acknowledgement that there might be more history in the county. Any specific, are there other unique beyond the listing up there, right? And those are ones that are registered. And so there are special both requirements and some benefits that might be attached to those, right? In terms of historic tax credits. Any other unique historical resources, historical sites, historical structures that I should be aware of that you folks think might be of importance to recognize? And then it would be, is there something, is there something that might impact that, or that we need to look at preserving, any special policies or strategies to include in the plan?
Patty Woodlawn? And then, I don't know how we can actually accomplish any of this, so, but cemeteries? I mean, and there are a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
presumably they have some historical significance.
Yeah, yep.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah, recognizing those, we typically do discuss cemeteries under kind of the utilities, community facilities, because it kind of serves as, but I also, I agree. Recognizing the historical kind of nature of them, I think it's certainly appropriate you could recognize them in both sections, right?
And one more, and it may be in the Menominee Downtown Historical District, but my church, First
Mhm.
Congregational Church, is 170 years old.
Mhm.
I think should be recognized.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Any challenges or any, concerns related to these historical resources that that you're aware of?
I'm sorry, I'm being obnoxious.
That's right.
I don't exactly know how we accomplish support and collaboration and preservation and education. I mean, a wonderful laudable goal, but I don't see how we have the resources to do this.
Sure.
I mean, our hands are pretty, well, not ours, your hands are pretty full anyway. So that's just a general concern with all of this. I don't know
Yep.
how we do any of it.
Yep. And we'll talk about, when we get to the goals, objectives, policy strategies, some of those strategies, it's not an easy undertaking, right? But I mean, real partners, right? So you have the Historical Society, you have, yeah, it's a challenge. These 8 already have some level of protection by being on the register, right? So in terms of preserving, or protecting, right? Those 8 are already recognized. If there's others that you think should be, perhaps if it's, you're right, and maybe the church is in that Menominee Downtown Historic District. But let's,
Yeah.
for
It
example,
might be.
let's, for example, say that it isn't, okay? And you see a lot of value and you think that it, really adds to the history of the area and it's something that you really want as a county want to preserve. A strategy could be, work with, and encourage the city of Menominee to pursue designation of the church on the historic registry, right? So that's just one example of how a strategy or action related to historical resources could be done. Okay, I'm gonna keep us moving.
Wait, hang
Yeah,
on.
sure
I should
thing.
bring up, I've had a few people talk to me about the county-owned property just north of this building. That little shed apparently used to be the site of an old insane asylum and seems to be important to some people for preservation.
Comments? Is that general consensus? Is that something that the committee?
There was, I mean, when you look at the old photographs of the structure, it was just amazingly, but I think all that's left is the powerhouse out
I
there.
think so.
So I'm not sure how, and we've decided to, but I don't know whether it's worth thinking about, I think, because it's part of that structure, that's for sure.
Wasn't it in the budget once and it got,
We were gonna repair the roof and then we decided there was a discussion about tearing it down. And we decided to repair and maintain until a decision could be made. So it's still
and he knows.
there's a guy who knows.
Yeah, so there has been in the capital improvement plan a perpetual amount of money that has been set aside annually in order to pay for the demolition of the smokestack and the associated building with that. So it certainly can have historic components to it, but it's also a really tall brick tower that can fall on on another building. So that's
Yeah.
obviously something that, so money has been set aside. A decision to actually move forward with anything has not been made, but kind of planning for the demolition has begun. So.
thing that we can't do is what Potter's Field?
Mhm.
That ours?
Yeah, no,
Is it, no, does the county own Potter's?
I think the county
I
does.
think the county does, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the other thing that strikes me is, are there Native American sites that are of
Mhm.
historical consequence?
Mhm.
And, you know, you hear about I know in the Wakanda Park, there were mounds. And I know the Historical Society is aware of that, but maybe it would be good to have it be part of our. But then also there probably are other sites, and because people keep telling me about a site in northern Dunn County, which I actually went to one time, where supposedly was the site of the last battle between the Chippewa and the Sioux in Wisconsin. And I don't know how we do that, but maybe it may be that just sort of identifying a process for identifying and potentially recording cultural Native American sites. Yeah, Jace. got something.
I can comment on that a little bit. So basically, any project that we do for conservation that's moving soil, we have to do a cultural resources evaluation.
Right.
So there are a number of sites throughout the county. One that's a more recent one that NRCS had a project on is down in Comfort. So it's just on the intersection of Highway 72 and County Road D. It's an old area known as the Comfort Mounds. There was a waterway project there that had a hit for cultural resources. So then you had to do a further investigation. There was someone that was out there on site for the entire project to look for things. That type of activity is still somewhat top secret as far as advertising where these sites are,
Yeah.
because over time they've been vandalized or stolen or things like that. So a lot of the State Historical Society knows where a lot of these sites are. They just keep them to a limited number of people that know about them. A couple other sites that come to mind, Tom just mentioned Devil's Punch Bowl, Chimney Rock, some of those other areas that are, within the county that are prominent. Chimney Rock, I believe, is on private property, but
Yeah, making a note of those at least.
Yeah, and I think to the mound point, at least recognizing that there are those, perhaps not identifying or calling them out by location, but yeah, absolutely.
So we were, do these sites have to be on public land, or can they be also on private land?
Oh, certainly they could be on private land. Yeah, yeah.
Because-
If they're important to the, if the county sees them as being, of historical importance to the county.
Because we had a site in a town of Grant that had maybe, I think, 5, like 2-story homes on top of a big hill. And every year our grade school used to go up there for a picnic all the time. And if you had time, you could look back, because everybody always got to carve their name in and what year, and some of them go back a long, long time. But when you talk about the rocks, we always went up there. I still have people calling my sister and ask, be okay to just walk up there. So,
Mm-hmm. Okay. Terms of, historical resources, we do have the Dunn County Historical Society. They were formed in 1950, and you can see up there kind of what their mission is, and pretty impressive, organization that works on historical education and advocacy. They of course have that heritage museum and kind of a workshop, various programs, it looks like, per their website, different speaker series, different, activities. In addition to that, there's the Colfax Railroad Museum, right? There's the Downsville Community Museum. Are there other partners that the county sees, that you folks see, that, help to share, celebrate, or preserve history in Dunn County? Or are these kind of the big ones?
Well, there's something that kind of connects all of them.
Yeah.
That's Chippewa Valley Learning and Retirement. They hold seminars and do different things with the museums and among other things. So they really spread the news on that.
Thank you.
I can't remember the name of it, but there's a museum on, Cedar Falls Road and Wilson, kind of across the street from that daycare, a little ways down. What's that place called?
Shipping people, trucking people.
Oh,
That's it.
that's it.
That's
Okay.
Can you tell me a
Wilson
Well,
little bit of,
Place?
no, well, you're talking about the
Yeah, I'm trying to
Okay.
pull it up on maps.
Yeah,
convention,
It's across from the Dutsith. Or maybe it is owned by
It is owned by Dotsith. You can have group gatherings there and they have all kinds of antiques and so forth. Is that the one you're
Oh.
talking about?
Yeah.
They have part of that bridge sitting in front of it.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to move us into cultural resources, right? And so cultural resources, culture, it's doesn't necessarily have to have a structure associated, right? It can be programming, it can be just a group, social connection. So there's various clubs or community organizations. I've listed some of them. We've got our arts groups, we've got our sports clubs, we've got our, kind of youth groups. There might be others. And then we also have kind of community celebrations, or how do we kind of get people to interact and, in Dunn County and kind of celebrate history and celebrate Dunn County, right? It doesn't have to be history, but celebrate. So Dunn County Fair, that certainly is maybe a big one, maybe not. And then of course there's local festivals, local music events, farmers markets, right? Other ways of bringing people together to celebrate Dunn County. I know that Explore Menominee maintains kind of a listing of various programming throughout the county. Any other, when we talk about community celebrations, anything that sticks out in terms of things that should be recognized or ways that bring people in Dunn County together? Tammy just mentioned fish fries. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope they're going to repeat the 4th of July celebration again. And the Menominee Optimist Club is no longer in existence.
Okay.
Rotary is taking over some of their duties.
what was the downtown fest we have every year that this year they took over the park and their
It's
booths?
not the community cookout,
Mm,
huh?
Have the national night out.
no, it was paint the community green was the theme.
No?
Paint the town green. I can't, but happens every year and it seems like it's actually getting bigger all the time.
And do you think, Tom, that is that a Menominee specific event? Or do you think that there's folks from all over the county that does it bring in and kind of unite different folks together? Just curious. And it's fine if it's Menominee specific. I'm just curious.
I don't know.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I think that it attracts a lot of people, but it was primarily a Menominee event.
Mm-hmm.
But and I think there is a committee of made up of local officials and business owners that provide an annual coordination and organization.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose I might include the Red Cedar Speedway as something that draws a lot of people. I mean, it's true.
Absolutely, yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about rural character because this does contribute to the culture of Dunn County, right? And so survey responses, right? Both the county-wide survey, even in the farmland owner survey, kind of our municipal surveys really suggest that rural character is important to the culture of Dunn County. That's, and so are there specific, and this is now an open-ended question. There's no right or wrong answer, but are there specific aspects or features that you as a committee see as being kind of critical to either comprising or supporting this quote rural character? It could be, right? And I'm just going to list off just to get you thinking, right? Doesn't mean that these are the right answers. Is it open spaces and farmland? Natural features? Low density? Is that what defines rural character? Historic buildings and structures? Just the general kind of feel or sense of community, local traditions, rural economy, so ag-based, buffer zones, right? Um, Scale of development. So, keeping kind of smaller buildings, smaller, quiet, low traffic volumes. Those are just some things, what do you see when you hear rural character and it's come up? It's certainly, that's one of the key features that folks, gravitate towards when they think of Dunn County. We like that rural character. We want to, and this will spill over, right? This kind of defining or setting what this rural character is, seems to be important to the culture. But then it also plays over and, we want to use this then to kind of help frame land use, discussions, growth discussions. So I think it's important that we spend a little bit of time just talking about what you see rural character. What is it that defines rural character of Dunn County?
Anybody? I mean, I can
All right.
pop in on this, but
Well, I guess I would say the most important things would be open spaces, farmland, and the natural features.
And open spaces meaning preserving natural areas? Just what do you, when you say open space, I'm gonna make you flesh that out. What do you mean by open space? Is it public open lands that folks can recreate in? Is it just having a viewscape? Is it a combination of the two? Can you flesh that out a little bit more for me?
Sure. I mean, I feel like it's all of the above.
Okay.
All of the above
Mhm.
are important.
Mhm.
so to me, it's the problem with it's not just farmland and it's not just open spaces. It's not just a rural economy or it's that sort of uh, the sort of fortunate mix that we have of those things. So it's not just any kind of farming. I don't think that preserving uh, our farmland in the form of 30 large CAFO operations would be sufficient to maintain rural character. In fact, it probably would be antithetical to it. But so to me, it's like historically, this has been the topography and the cultural and community fabric of this area has included a countryside that mixes natural natural areas, farmland, and people. And that requires that we maintain at least some, to me, it requires that we maintain at least some component of small and medium-sized farms and farming activity. so that a rural economy that has one now consolidated into one very large cooperative feed mill in the county is not sufficient to support the kind of diversity that gives us rural character. Now, how do we as a county encourage that? If it's what we want, how do we encourage it? If we don't, I think encourage it by just asking the question, do you want to maintain land and farmland? Well, yeah, but in some ways it's like, what kind of farmland and what kind of farming? If it's all going to be farmed by a concentrated group of owners and whatever, then I think mine's not so excited about it. So for example, I think that, I don't know if we're going to get into this in the ag stuff or not, but I think it would be valuable to have a focus group that brought together specifically some small and medium-sized farmers. I mean medium-sized too, not just small, but people that are, relatively good size, but not large, but that have an interest in maybe growing diversified crops or diversified products or more local marketing or processing, so that we find out because that's what people will come here for, I think. And that's what we would like. I think most people would like to live around. But is there some way but we're losing that in a way. I mean, it feels like we're losing it to me anyway. People are hanging on by their fingernails in niche markets, but there's no sort of sense of, we can build an economy if we support and invest in in encouraging the development of this kind of entrepreneurial farming. So anyway, that's when I think about rural character, I think it's that mix of farming, not just farmland, but farming, animals, people, and natural features that is unique to our area. I was driving around yesterday, I was just like, I can't believe how beautiful this is. What a gift to live here.
Thank you. Any other? Oh, yeah.
I know this year is in the past, but like we used to have, like in Colfax, 10, 12 different like local schoolhouses out in the country. And there was nothing that brought people, like for the Christmas program, you'd be surprised how many people come to those parties and that just helped solidify the cultural, like a small area, I know it's in the past, but it used to be, pretty popular back then.
Who organized those? Do you know? Okay.
The teacher, I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure,
Okay.
but
Mm-hmm.
I know they were pretty popular.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I mean, the other thing that and I really agree with that, Carrie. I think that I've seen that those gatherings are often the most interesting. But driving around again, one of the cultural architectural features of our area are the barns, which are fading and disappearing. And when you drive around any day, you see that's more and more happening. But it's not too late to think about, is there a way for us to encourage protection of some of those structures or conversion of those structures into something that's maybe more usable given modern farming practices?
Can I add some more thoughts about the importance of farming activities? So like if I were to imagine a scenario where we have 40 acres of cropland or some other farming activity that got converted into 5 small like 5-acre lots, we put a house on each one and each one turns that land into a vast lawn, right? To me, that would be a loss of rural character, even though there would still be plenty of open space, right? Low density, I think that would be a loss to rural character.
Okay, thank you. That helps. Yep. Yeah, excellent discussion. And again, this is going to continue this rural character, right? And so I appreciate all of the input, because these elements aren't isolated, right? This feeds into when we talk about culture, and especially here in Dunn County, right? In a rural county, rural character, we're going to talk about it in the agriculture, just as Tom mentioned. We're going to talk about it when we get, land use. It does influence many housing, right? It does influence many other aspects. So I thought it was worth, having a little conversation on what rural character means. And I appreciate all of your input. So in terms of, and you probably, hopefully you had a chance to read the memo kind of that outlines kind of our process for drafting, putting together some draft goals, objectives, policy strategies. Tammy and I talked and we said it's always better to at least draft something and have you folks then react and respond to. But we took a look at, as I mentioned, Dunn County, your current comprehensive plan doesn't really touch on historical or cultural resources. But we also looked at those municipal comp plans, so city, village, and town, that have been adopted within the last 10 years, because that then to us is the definition of recent, right? If it was adopted 20 years ago, yeah, that's not really all that relevant. So what do the municipal comp plans say? There isn't a lot in them about historical and cultural resources, not surprisingly, but a recognition that by identifying and preserving, historical, archaeological, so those mounds, perhaps sites, the town can add to its identity and create opportunities for education. So there is they do associate some with their identity, or those things feeding into that rural kind of culture, rural character and identity. Again, preservation and promotion of cultural resources helps a community to cultivate its own unique identity. So really, just kind of a recognition of those. Those are kind of vague in general, right? They're kind of broad, but there is some connection of associating, cultural, historical resources to community identity. Oh, and I already mentioned that. We also took a look at the community survey results, right? So that countywide community survey, asked some questions, not specific to historical and cultural resources, but there are some things, right? So 40% of county survey respondents found it important that the plan provide recommendations on identifying and protecting historical sites and structures. 42% found it, somewhat important. So there is folks who responded to the survey do see some value in historical sites and protecting and preserving them. 28% find it very important, so the highest of importance, that the plan work to celebrate the county's history. 42% somewhat important, right? So just identifying ways, and again, this isn't that county government has to do this, but this is a plan for the county as a whole. So partners tapping into, you have the Historical Society, you have other organizations that we mentioned, other museums, but celebrating history. Then we go into rural character, small town feel, and agriculture are contributing features of the culture in Dunn County. Preserving the rural character of Dunn County's countryside. So this was a question where we kind of defined what we mean by rural character a little bit. Mix of small towns, diversified farms, open space, low density. Identified that as very important by 67% of survey respondents. So it seems like those are kind of the features, diversified farms, mix of small towns, all of those things that we just kind of talked about. It ties in nicely with this question and how we kind of defined it or framed it for the survey to give folks an idea of what is meant by what rural character, right? Because there's so many different opinions on what rural character might mean. County's historic and cultural character is also influenced by landmarks, right? Like Mabel Tainter, Menominee's downtown architecture. So those two are on that historic designation list. Cultural resource is not limited to sites and structures. So I mentioned it can be programming, right? It's bringing folks together and cultural offerings. You have the university, right? They play a role in cultural programming throughout Dunn County, community theater, music events, are just as enriching the small town experience. And so I can live in, out in the town, but I can always come to the city of Menominee for some of these university events as well. We talked about this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but, we talked about some of the other historical or cultural sites, right? And I have those written down. We'll make sure to recognize them. Are you at risk of losing these resources? Are there, and I asked that in a different way, like, are there challenges to, preserving or utilizing these resources? But are you at risk of losing them? Certainly those that are on the designated sites, no, but are there other challenges in terms of programming? Yeah, just some open-ended questions that I wanted to throw out here for you.
I just know from 8 years of being on the Mabel Tainter board and several years as president, that structure is incredibly expensive to heat, trying to heat up all of those stones. So I don't know if people, well, second thing, it was really hard to raise money for the renovation. So yes, I think financially, it is possible that the Mabel could once again enter this state of falling apartness, disrepair. And I think there are a lot of people in the county who've, like, for example, have never been in the Mabel Tainter, and so don't have any sense of affiliation that it needs preservation. So yes, I think that's my answer, with only one of those sites
Sure.
mentioned.
Yeah, funding, always a
Yeah,
probably all of the organization, all of the, that
probably true.
universal. Okay. If you think of anything else, let me know. In the interest of your time, I'm going to move us forward to the draft goals, objectives, policies, and strategies. Again, these draft goals, objectives, policies, strategies, or GOPS, as we call them, were crafted utilizing the data that we have through those municipal comp plans, through the surveys, and working with your staff, right? So Tammy was instrumental based on her knowledge of the county, and kind of what some of the needs are. So just a reminder, and I mentioned this in the memo, but goals are really overarching statements, right? They portray the county kind of in your desired future. What do you want to see, right? What do you want to have happen? Objectives are more a list of measurable aims. Policies are ongoing tasks or decision-making. So there's no final deliverable. There's no, real conclusion. But then your strategies are actionable tasks, right? And keeping in mind, this isn't a work plan for county government, right? It's the county as a whole. So it's not that you folks have to do all these things. You're also bringing in other partners have to take these on. So I know at one of your last meetings prior to myself joining this project, there was discussion about implementation, right? That's really where the strategies come in. And at the end of the day, your plan is going to have a whole kind of action plan that compiles all of the strategies together and has some short-term. What's your short-term actions? What are your midterm? What are your long-term actions countywide? So that's really what those GOPS are. I have on the screen, and I have it in a Word document as well, but I also placed it at your table. So you have a hard copy, and it also was included in the packet. So it is available online as well for those watching at home. A copy of what we've put together for draft goal, the draft historical and cultural resources goal. It's pretty simple, right? Dunn County preserves, enhances, and promotes its historic, cultural, and archaeological sites to preserve the rural character, strengthen community identity, and connect residents and visitors with the county's heritage. So that's what we've put together as the goal, right? In the interest of time, I don't know if you want me to walk through all of the objectives and policies and strategies. There's quite a few here, or if I just open it up, right? If you had a chance to look them over, any comments, any feedback. It's not that if you don't mention things today, they can't get included, right? This will all come before you again. But really, today is an opportunity for us to get your input and feedback on those draft goals, objectives, policies, and strategies.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I think the goal is fine. I think the objectives and policies could be truncated a bit. It's a lot. I would cut them. I could, identify things that I think would cut. It's the strategies piece that sort of bothers me. I know you are saying that this is not the county's responsibility, but if we are going to implement these strategies and if we're going to hold ourselves accountable for them, somebody has to be in charge. And I don't think the county has that ability. We might have the willingness, but I don't see how we can do it. So I guess the question is there a structure around which a few of these policies and strategies could get implemented without the county having to be in charge? And I don't know, that's just me. It feels like it's a lot that can't be, for which we can't be held accountable.
So, but maybe the role of the county is to explore and facilitate the development of those structures.
Yeah,
And not,
maybe.
yeah, I mean, so,
Who does that though?
well,
Dan?
I think Tammy and you guys, no, is there a committee in the county that would that could have, I mean, are there any of these that could be, if we identified a particular strategy that was appropriate for a committee to have some oversight over, maybe that would
Maybe.
make some sense.
I mean, it sounds like this would be community resources and tourism.
I think some of it could go there, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And already is in a way, yeah. It's sort of
Be
the,
some sort of partnership with pharmacy.
well, I mean, I think the idea is to build partnerships with county resources, but what we found, like in housing, I think, or with everything really, is that like you said, we can't do it.
Right.
But sometimes, I mean, I think, okay, so take the very positive development that Chris and Dan were able to work on with regard to, well, Dan in particular with broadband, for example, and then and then with economic development, where all of a sudden we took something that had a dysfunctional structure, and we're able to help with county leadership, help make that, and provide and have a committee now that provides some sort of modest, at least, and mostly because it hasn't been necessary, oversight over it. So looking for those opportunities, or sort of at least asserting that those are opportunities we're open to, might be helpful.
And perhaps, it may be in under the strategies, it recognizes those, maybe it's, I don't know if it applies to all 10 of these strategies, or maybe it's an opening that, pursue partnerships to do these things. So, because I think it sounds like you're not, you I'm not saying that you think all of these things are good, but that your concern isn't over the strategy, it's how will they get done and does it make it a county responsibility? And so maybe it is including some language that, you're going to work to identify partnerships and
And
engage
maybe
other
that
groups.
maybe that is the strategy, is to identify partners who are interested in
Pursuing and
preserving our
yeah.
historic and cultural resources and can
Mhm.
work. I mean, the county could be a part of
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
And that's not to say that the strategies are, in and of themselves bad or good. It's just that maybe the only strategy we can advocate for is to bring people together to do it, because we can't.
But would you agree that having and identifying these kind of action items is still appropriate because it would provide guidance in what partnerships you're seeking, right? And what is it that you're looking to have partnerships for? Again, I'm not saying maybe some of these you're saying, and let me know, right? But to have some direction to what because otherwise you're just saying seek partnerships to do historical
Yeah,
culture. But what is it that you want those partnerships to do? I think it's important to have that a little bit more detailed, maybe not to this level, right? But what is it that you want those partnerships to do? And I think that's what these strategies
So maybe
are
there could be an
suggesting.
overarching strategy.
Correct. And these are sub,
These
to
are
pursue,
subcategories.
to pursue items such as.
Such as, exactly right. That
Yeah.
would make me happier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do others feel about that? You agree? Any? Okay. Were there any other comments and, happy to chat with you if you want, later, Diane, about kind of refining some of these, the objectives and policies and making it a little more honed in. But any other, I want to be respectful of your time. So any other specific comments, if you think of something too, you can always call me, you can email me. Again, it's not we'll continue through this. Okay, seeing no other comments, I'm just gonna real quickly talk about next steps. Pretty easy next steps, October. Not sure which October meeting, you have 2 meetings, but Tammy will guide and direct me. We'll be bringing forward those draft goals, objectives, policies, talking about housing, right? And again, we're having our second kind of focus group today at the Housing Action Team. So if you wanna participate in that, that's at 2:00 today here somewhere in the county building. Might also talk about transportation depending on how much time these, I have. So this is all subject to change. And then I'm going to wrap up intergovernmental cooperation and bring forward draft goals, objectives, policies, and strategies based on our conversation at our last meeting that I was with you at, along with some other information and data, and present those to you for your response. So you'll have them to review before your meeting, just as this meeting. So we'll continue forward in those elements. Again, we'll continue hosting those focus groups and continuing to build the plan. So with that, I thank you for your time, your participation. This was great conversation and I appreciate it. Any questions I'm happy to answer today, or give me a shout by email or phone or through Tammy whenever you have them. So thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah.
Yes, we're at item 7D, review of land use division fee schedule.
All right, how's everyone doing? All right. I think I'll try this component. So in the packet, kind kind of that bigger overview of where we're at as far as our fee schedule. First wanted to kind of just give an overview of our different program breakdown. And I feel like there's maybe the priority-based budgeting process. I took the framework of what I envisioned for 2026 and already implementing changes. Right, so the PELS program was identified one of those programs, and then that I already identified it at 1.5 staff. For numbers and how we operate today, historically, for example, the sanitation program, if I would have signed 2 FTEs, again, thankfully through the different software, different technology changes, we're, working towards that 1.5 that's reflected in that 2026 budget. So again, overall, just, so our sanitation program is at that 2, zoning is going to be at that 3, and then planning, we have roughly 1 FTE assigned to that. So overall, if we look at the sanitation program, we've got $80,000 roughly in revenue and our cost. Right now, that's about that 33%. For priority-based budgeting 2026, we're closer to that 50% when we get down to that 1.5 staff. And then for zoning, obviously, we're not close at all for cost recovery for the staff involved on that program. So even prior to the budget cycle, really, as a staff member, I recognize the importance of revisiting our fee schedule and see opportunities for us to improve. So again, here's our existing fee schedule. This is from 2021. Last time it was updated. And then in the packet, I included a proposed fee schedule. So it's kind of robust. I am kind of getting away from just the catch-all fee. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for us to actually capture additional fees, different revenue based on the different types of uses, different types of structures that we are seeing come in. So for example, our principal structures, that's been a catch-all, right? So today we heard about the Hetches, and they're going to be coming in for a future zoning permit for a very large structure that's going to be in a light industrial zoning. Our review is going to be much more complicated. So for that, I reflect a higher fee at $500 versus what we would do for just a residential structure. Again, so this is overall reflecting some of those changes. Accessory structures I broke down a little bit differently, equally increasing them. Although I was sitting here earlier and thinking, right now anything less than 100 square feet doesn't require a permit. And I kind of almost want to advocate for something less than 200 square feet maybe doesn't require a permit. I mean, the staff time involved for us to do a garden shed is extensive, and typically, and I'm just using that as an example, and it could be like 140 square feet, right? So a 10 by 14 would be an average garden shed that's easily movable. So setbacks still apply, the land use still applies, it's just we won't have a zoning permit for it. Equally, then opening up staff time to deal with other topics or other issues. Some things additional onto this that would be different. I would really like to see us do an annual registration for all mobile recreational vehicles. So those RVs that are being used in the county on private property are actually required to be licensed annually through us. And through that, we'd also then, through the sanitation program, be able to start monitoring the waste storage tanks that are on board them and really try to set us up for a better health and safety situation and get them off the properties over the winter time so that we don't have these structures being lived in our cold climate. Utility installation is a new permit fee I'm recommending. We're seeing a lot of requests, and right now we really don't have a way of capturing that. So I'm just capturing it under a general zoning permit.
How defined utility?
Utility is defined really in our ordinance as a land use. So generate battery storage, a whole, gamut of activities are actually listed, but we just don't have a fee that would even be reflective of what our staff time involved is. Again, towers, I'm proposing to increase the fees. The co-location tower modifications, we're capped at state statute at 500. I'm recommending that. For new towers, again, we were only capturing $200 currently. State statute allows us to charge up to $3,000. I'm just recommending $1,500. I mean, the committee can choose to go higher. Again, I think that there's that balance, right? Of we want to also encourage towers. In our areas that aren't having services. So maybe that's a little incentive for them to invest some money here in Dunn County if our fees are reasonable. Signage, also breaking that down into different types of signs. So those that are illuminated or electronic, we should charge more. It's taking more staff time to review those permits, and really building is better. I noticed the next one, transfer of development rights, it really meant to be transfer development units. So again, that's that mechanism that we start tracking in our general agriculture district, that transfer of them. Change in uses is the new one. Permit renewal, this is just clarifying the language better. Zoning affidavit, so example, today we talked about hedges. I would be able to recover staff time for developing that affidavit. And I know there's just a little note there, but I guess I would envision that if there's multiple structures on a permit, right? So you're getting your house, your detached garage, a deck. It's going to be the most expensive permit. It's not multiple permits. I think there was a confusion with my staff that I was creating this really expensive zoning process. So that would be clarified there. Shoreland, again, just reflective of what those uses are and what we're seeing. We're doing a lot, so I did a shoreland, wetland utility installation. Again, we're doing a ton of staff time. Our erosion control review or stormwater review that we do for and vegetation removal is all related to shoreland. It's a ton of staff time, and so just really trying to raise our fees to reflect that. Historically, we haven't had a fee structure for floodplain. So I would, again, there's really trying to capture those fees for certain, I have to sign a certificate of compliance with any changes that are occurring in a floodplain. We have to sign this in a community acknowledgement form. So again, that's just really starting to try to capture those fees. And then finally, to the public hearing items. I'm not proposing to change our current fee for the conditional use permit. However, I'm proposing to add one for that non-farm residents and actually reduce that price. It's really a straightforward process for that non-farm. If they can meet the criteria, they get approval. So it's expensive once you start adding up the different steps for that non-farm residents. So I'd recommend that change. Livestock sighting, we can charge up to $1,000 by state statute. I'd recommend us increasing to that amount. Non-metallic mining, there's kind of a, what we're managing in zoning versus what land conservation captures under their permit structure. But ultimately, I would recommend an increase. Again, we're covering the notices, public comments, a whole bulk of that work, and continuing, right? So any kind of blasting notices are ran through us, any complaints are ran through us. So I think, trying to really recapture some of that money would be nice. Variances, not changing that fee. For a rezone, again, not changing that. I did add a fee here for any appeals, right? So I make a decision as a zoning administrator and someone wants to appeal my decision, they could go to the Board of Adjustment. Right now, we don't have a fee for that. And I'm recommending adding that fee to the structure. Again, comprehensive plan amendments. A township could ask for a change to the comprehensive plan so that there is some kind of consistency. If that request would come from a town, it would be nice to actually capture some of that. Conditional use permit review. So for example, livestock siding operation, we just recently permitted, we require those annual reports of those worksheets to be submitted. And I like to try to really capture staff's time for tracking that information as it comes in. And then just finally, the administration enforcement component, I just added additional things. And just bear with me, but we get several requests from the real estate agents, financial institutions that requires a ton of staff time. And ideally, we would create a form that they would fill out, and then we can produce the information for them, kind of like an open records request, and actually charge and recapture that. And I'm really hoping to, because right now, if a property goes up on the market, we are blasted with inquiries on it. And if there's only a way I can encourage the real estate agents early on in the process to contact us, we can plan, we can communicate what's going on with that property and really try to recapture some of that fee. Site visits, pre-application, we often get hypotheticals. I want to do this. Can I do this? What about this? But if they're actually asking us to come on site and do some investigation for them before they know what to do, perhaps we could capture a fee for that. Expedited fee review. Previously, it was a number. It was a set number. I'm just recommending a percent. Let's just take 1.7 times whatever fee it is, and that would be the expedited. So this time of year, we have several expedited permit fee requests. Everyone's last panic to get things done. It's again, staff time right now to turn around that work. And again, I want to have that as a discretion. I mean, there's just sometimes it's just not possible to expedite permits as quick as, one would expect. So that's zoning. I would love to tell you that I could say this is going to turn around $50,000 in additional revenue. I can't project that. I mean, if the committee wanted me to go, it would be challenging for us to go back in time and permits to kind of break this down, but I do feel like this would, really recapture additional work that we're doing. I was also going to go into the sanitation one, but I don't know if there's any questions initially on the zoning.
Any questions? Good job.
All right, so for the sanitation program, I'm very modest here. As I analyzed adjacent counties and comparing our fees to them, also considering our poverty level, our income thresholds here at the county, I'm a little bit more sensitive to really increasing our sanitation fees. So for example, conventional, right now, I'm just, proposing a $25 increase. And so forth. The big difference in my fee schedule, I would actually encourage a higher fee for a holding tank. Right? Holding tanks really should be the system of last resort. And if we make the fee actually cheaper, then it's more incentive to just do a holding tank versus maybe increase that fee, get someone to pause a little bit to see if it's really worth going that route. Again, the seasonal cabins that we're seeing, the 1 day or the 1 week a year primitive hunting cabin that is resistant to doing any sanitation. Again, we can try to capture that. And again, the state, any state sanitation permit, we collect $100 for the state. So let's just say that conventional, that's only $400 that we keep. 100 of that goes to the state. So $25 goes to the DNR for the groundwater fund, and $75 goes to DSPS to support the sanitation program. So just kind of a breakdown in the fees there. Any questions about the sanitation increases? Based on my estimate, and I'm being very careful of permits projections next year, On on a low end, I would say we would get roughly $7,000 of increased revenue.
I actually think that makes sense. If we raise the sanitation fees too much, it would allow people to just ignore us. So, being conservative here makes some sense to me.
There's two things I'd like to see is one is let us know what our current rate is, because you've gone through like a lot of these years, it's kind of hard to keep track of what has gone up, and how much it's gone up. And then it gets back to the people that's working there. If you raise the rate, it's almost like you're raising the rate for taxes. You're doing the same thing. I mean, you're already being paid to do a certain job. And now if you're gonna raise it all the time, it's just going to like make it more difficult for people that gotta pay the taxes. So what's the difference if I gotta pay a real estate tax? Oops, no, I gotta add on all these other, there's certain things that we should get paid for. But there's some things that, that should be part of your department.
That's fair. And I put in the opening of this my staff report to, does the committee have any direction on, a framework for what sustainable operations look like? What does that look like for the Environmental Services Department, or is it just the zoning department, the sanitation program? What does sustainable services look like? What do you want me, what should that cost recovery be? Again, I would say that I'm doing what I can to reduce staff. I really am trying to, implement, keep everyone, so we're down to 1.5. But as zoning changes, our backlog and just code enforcement. So I'm really hoping not to lose anyone so we can reallocate and do code enforcement to really deal with, the failing systems out there, and really help clean up some of these problem sites. So, but again, if I think that's the direction of the committee, if zoning isn't a priority, if sanitation isn't a priority, then we can certainly, challenge me to cut more.
I mean, I guess overall, I like the idea of using fees to try to recoup some of this cost. The county taxpayers, they're paying for it no matter what. I'd rather see it be funded by the people who are using the service specifically, rather than having it be a blanket property tax. I like the direction this is going.
That's a really good point, Supervisor Barrier. Yeah, and I think our goal should be, maybe what the committee ought to do is think about some kind of structure. I mean, we in Health and Human Services, we have approved a fee-based structure for the Public Health Department, much easier for them than it is for us, but of recouping 70 to 100% of the costs involved in providing that service. Again, I understand that it's easier, but 16%, for example, is not enough. So we really need to, I really think we need to look at adjusting the fee structure appropriately to recover more of our staff costs, not less, and not reducing our staff, since the workload is already sort of ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree with all those comments. I think I think you have tried to balance this idea of streamlining some of the processes so that they don't require as much fee support. And that's, as long as we're trying to balance those two things, I think we're moving in the right direction here for sure. Anybody else? So what's your plan on this then, Tammy?
I guess based on the committee direction, I can actually formalize this structure again, so it would have to come back as resolution by the committee, and then it would go to county board for final approval. So for this schedule, we can, I mean, if we're looking at an October, or if we want November, and then off to county board. As far as adopting this fee schedule, I don't know if there's any red flags. If you want me to increase fees more, obviously you guys would have another shot at looking at this. I would also, for full transparency, I think it would be important for me to communicate with our customers that we deal with a lot and try to get their input
Yep.
additionally on this, to stay ahead of this, but ultimately, it could come to the committee. If you want me to explore, again, there's two components, right? The sanitation and the zoning side. Overall, I'm proposing these changes to both programs. Ultimately, if we need to revisit staffing and service level, that can certainly be at the discretion of the committee when that needs to come back.
I just wanted to say that I really like not requiring a permit for the little sheds. I feel like that's a really smart strategy. I don't know, I suppose you've probably thought of this, but if there are any other opportunities where just getting rid of those expensive permits that are costing more in time than it is to issue it, if there's other opportunities like that, I think that that's a smart move.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah.
So that's all you're gonna get out of us.
Good job.
Take it and run with it. Okay. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
Conservation aid.
Yes, we have thank you, Dan. 9A, resolution selecting the 2026 Conservation AIDS Program Project. Chase.
Okay, so we do this every year. Reminder, this process is back in, I believe it was 2011, County Board authorized this committee to make the final decision and approval of a resolution for selecting a conservation aid grant project. Past practice and still practice to this day is we seek and consult with the Alliance of Dunn County Conservation and Sports Clubs to come up with project ideas, things like that. So examples of projects in the past have been boat landing repairs, boat docks, fish habitat, stream restorations. And typically they're all associated with public access or public recreation. This year's, I guess, recommendation from the Alliance is for Fisherman's Park. How many of you know where Fisherman's Park is? I didn't either. And people in our office who've been here a long time didn't know it either. But there's a little property just north of Elk Creek Lake on Elk Creek that's owned. Actually, Dunn County does own some property adjacent, but this property is owned by the Alliance of Conservation and Sports Clubs. And it's been a local fishing spot for many years. I think in the packet, Tom, there might be some pictures of the site.
Yeah, there are.
So this project is going to improve, I guess, the parking and access, as well as restrict some access. So right now, if you drive in through this driveway, you can drive all the way to the stream. And people have done that, and there's a wetland back there and they're getting stuck. And in some ways kind of destroying the property. So part of these improvements and upgrades would be to create a better parking area, driveway, restrict access through fencing or gates, and then also do some other improvements to the property itself, such as invasive species management. There's a ton of buckthorn out there. But it's a beautiful stretch of stream. It is publicly accessible fishing easements up and down the waterway. So, this project would be to look at just doing some of those improvements. And we've estimated this to fit within the budget that this project or this grant normally gives. So this is a 50% match grant. $2,325 comes from the county. $2,325 comes from the state DNR. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but the The main part here is there's a resolution in your packet, just authorizing us to pursue this project again for 2026, and in the name of the Fisherman's Park, so.
Any questions? Describe again where this is. This sounds like a wonderful place to, so how do you get to this place?
Tom, I can share a map quick if you don't mind. Yeah. So this is the Village of Elk Mound, that green square. If you come down on H, south on H, you can take double E to the east. And then, this yellow diamond here is the location of the property, so, H to this, you can, yeah, I guess you can go a couple of ways, but 410th Avenue would be the town road.
Thank you. Okay, anyone care to make a motion to select the site as a
I'll
program
make that
project?
motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. Motion is carried. I think that is all that's on our agenda. Are there any announcements? Tom?
I just have an update for you. At our last meeting, we conditionally approved that certified survey map that had the access easement coming in. Just wanted to let the committee know I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, the town of Sheridan met and also approved it. So that certified survey map will get recorded now.
Okay, our next meeting is October 1st.
Thanks, everybody, for the really excellent work today. Great staff reports, good discussion. And I want to thank whoever came up with it for adding to my vocabulary with the word view shed.
Right.
Whatever.